All right, welcome everyone to the Elite Body Call. This is Jim Katsoulis, and every week we talk to a different expert and find out what their best exercise, nutrition, and motivation secrets are so that you can get the body that you want. As I wrote in the email promoting this call, one of the things I realized when I was looking over the experts that we've talked to is I haven't really talked to a nutritionist yet, someone who's really an expert in how to eat, really just kind of cover how to eat in order to get the body you want. So I was excited. A couple weeks ago, I was at a fitness event, and I got to meet Isabel, and she seemed like the perfect fit for this. So her name's Isabel de los Rios, and she's a nutritionist and an exercise specialist, and she's the author of The Diet Solution. So we're going to be asking a lot of questions about nutrition, and if you have any questions that you want answered specifically, feel free to write them in on the page there. And if we have time, we'll get to them. We've got a lot of questions that people have asked, and some of the questions I want to ask her myself. So, Isabel, how you doing?
I'm doing great tonight. How are you, Jim?
Good, good. And I appreciate you getting on the call because usually we do these calls on Wednesday night. I know you've been traveling a bit, so I appreciate you stepping in on short notice. That was
no problem. Cool. I'm happy to be here.
Cool. So why don't you just kind of start out? Why don't you tell us a little bit about your personal background and what is the philosophy behind your book, The Diet Solution?
Well, I was overweight as a child, overweight as a teenager, and then overweight into my college years. So it was really my own search for answers that led me to writing The Diet Solution. So I just about tried everything, the good and the bad, and what I found with some of the programs is, yes, they were right. I would lose weight, but I would feel awful. I'd be fatigued, no energy. I'd have acne where I didn't have it before. It was just a constant roller coaster of trying different things.
Sure.
So, and that, led me to study medicine in college, and it was my intention to go on to medical school. But as I really dove into my nutrition books and my physiology books, I realized that people could really help themselves before they actually even had to go to the doctor. And that's why I started to do what I did. And it really took a good long while, 15 years, before I figured it out. And it was a combination of some of the best books, some of the best workshops, some of the best doctors I had found. And that's really what's in The Diet Solution, is just years and years of figuring it out.
Sure. So what did you find out? I mean, I know, a little bit from your history, the diabetes ran in your family. So, I mean, what are some of the main things, just kind of overall things that are kind of behind what Diet Solution is all about? We'll get into some of the specifics, but just kind of overarching. How did you go from, because I know in your family diabetes was a thing, and I know your mom had quite a transformation. How did she do that? Was it mostly dieting? Or not, I shouldn't say dieting, but the diet.
It was completely what she was eating. So that's really where it started. I really started studying diabetes and insulin and different hormones in the body. So It was I just really wanted to figure out the diabetes thing. But what happened simultaneously, I really figured out the weight gain thing and the weight loss thing. Because what's causing people to have diabetes is the same thing that's causing them to lose weight. So what happened was when I would regulate my clients' insulin levels, even the ones that were not diabetic, they really lost weight and were able to keep it off just by stabilizing their sugar and their insulin levels. So I could do the same thing with a diabetic and a non-diabetic, and they would get the same great results.
Wow.
So it really did start with the researching the diabetes. With my mom, it finally got to a point where we did completely the opposite of what the dietitian recommended, and that's how she got those incredible results.
Wow, that's pretty cool. And I'm excited because I don't know, during these calls I've heard a lot, people start to mention this idea of hormones and how important it is to controlling your weight. So I'm excited to get a little bit deeper into that. Let's just start here. Tell me a little bit about some of the most common nutrition beliefs that are out there, kind of conventional wisdom, that are completely wrong when it comes to losing weight. What are some people doing, and they try hard and they're giving it their all, but they're just doing the wrong thing right from the start? What are some of the most common ones?
Completely wrong would be people who drink skim milk instead of whole milk. That is completely wrong, and I'm not afraid to say that. People who switch from whole wheat bread, from white bread to whole wheat bread, still completely wrong, and I know that probably sounds insane. People who take salt out of their diet is absolutely wrong. You need salt in order to be healthy, in order to lose weight. Those are really the most common ones and the most controversial ones I deal with in my office. Another good one is I really insist that people eat butter and coconut oil. And you have to imagine that now the people that come into my office really have to trust me because I'm really telling them some things that they've heard for years not to do. And these are the people that are getting results. So those are really the most common ones I see walking into my office.
Okay, well, I got to ask about. I want to find out the milk one, but the bread one. Let me in. What's up with that? White bread to whole wheat? That's not. What's going on there?
Okay, well, let's say it's definitely better, right? So on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the ideal and 1 being absolutely awful, white bread would be 1. But whole wheat bread is really just number 3, and it's still wheat that has been processed. So now when bread is made, the wheat should be picked and then sprouted. And what that means is it should sit in water and it should almost digest in the water. That increases the fiber content, increases the protein. And there are breads out there that do that because, honestly, Jim, I'm not going to do that. And, you know, the people on the call probably aren't going to do that either. But there are sprouted grain breads that your body can digest a lot better than it will ever digest a whole wheat bread. That is a big, big mistake. If your body still cannot digest wheat, because I'm still convinced that the human body functions a lot better without any kind of wheat, then you can do things like spelt or just go bread-free. And, you know, I have a lot of clients who, they just don't eat bread anymore. And, you know, there's a lot of other great things in this world that, you know, bread doesn't always have to be an option.
Sure. Well, I like that. I mean, you know, one of the things I think about a lot, and again, I'm not a nutritionist, but the idea of like, well, if I was just put in the woods, what would I eat? I wouldn't know how to make bread. I wouldn't know how to, you know what I mean? I have no idea how to do it. And it's there for us, so we just assume it is something that, you know, how would we ever live without it? But that's an interesting point. What so the skim milk to whole milk, what's the deal there?
Well, our bodies were also not designed to eat dairy. So, you know, all of my clients usually come to me by referral. And I know the first warning they get is, oh, well, if you're going to go and see Isabel, just get ready to be taken off dairy and be taken off wheat. And I'll tell you honestly, sometimes I do those two things and I never have to see the person again because they just feel phenomenal. So it's really incredible. But when humans first started eating and drinking dairy, they were not pasteurizing it, okay? So when you pasteurize milk, you're heating it to a really high temperature in order to kill whatever bacteria might be in there that's harmful. Now, okay, that's great, but unfortunately you're killing every single good enzyme inside the milk that your body would use to digest it. So we no longer would have the ability to digest that milk, and that's why there's so many people suffering from lactose intolerance, GI distress after they drink milk and eat cheese. So if you're going to have dairy, it just cannot be pasteurized dairy. Now, skim milk is worse because it has nothing left in it, so it might as well be dirty water. So even if there was some protein left in there, some vitamins after the pasteurization process, skim milk has absolutely nothing left. But the only thing it does have left is the milk sugar. So now actually you're just drinking some sugar, and that's why skim milk is really, really worse. So if my clients insist on having some milk because they like to put it in their coffee or they want to use it in a recipe, I say organic half and half or organic whole milk. If you can buy it raw and if you trust it raw, I've had a lot of raw dairy and done well with it, then do the raw dairy. But if not, it must be organic, and it's got to have some of that fat in it. It's got to be intact.
Sure. Well, that makes sense. And let me ask you this, because one of the things I studied for a little while, and I was always fascinated by it, was the idea of raw foods, you know, in general. What's your take on that? And again, I have a very kind of elementary understanding that, anytime you start cooking or processing a food, basically what you're doing is you're destroying the natural enzymes that are in it that are there naturally to help you digest it efficiently. What's your take on that? Like, when people are eating a mostly cooked, processed food diet, how does that impact the body? And what do you think about, like, raw foods and that idea?
I think eating raw foods is really great. So I personally make sure that there is one component of my meal that's raw so that I am benefiting from the enzymes that are in that fruit or vegetable. So let's say, for example, at breakfast, even if I make scrambled eggs and spinach and the spinach is sauteed, I'll make sure to have some baby carrots or an apple with that. So always having something raw in there. Same thing at lunch. Even if I have cooked cauliflower with my baked salmon, I'll make sure to have a salad and have some cucumbers, some celery, something that's going to give me some living enzymes. So that's a good rule of thumb. Really always have something that's raw in everything that you eat. And it's not really that difficult. If you throw some carrots, an apple, a pear, cucumber, celery, something like that into each meal, it really will help digestion. So that's another thing that happens. When people come to me, they have a lot of GI distress. Their doctor hasn't been able to figure out what may be going on in their stomach and their intestines. We put some raw foods in there slowly, and they really start to feel better because all they were lacking were some enzymes, and that's all they needed for digestion.
Right. Well, that makes sense. And a lot of that stuff, a lot of what you're saying, I'm sure you have all the scientific knowledge to back it up, but a lot of it's kind of common sense and natural. Like we were just dropped somewhere, you would eat these ways. If you're just dropped out in the woods, you probably wouldn't be able to drink milk.
No.
Sounds a wild cow.
That's a good point. Actually, Jim, I'm going to steal that one. I'm going to tell my clients that if I dropped you in the woods, I tell them, look, you can be a nutritionist by tomorrow, and I'm going to tell you one thing. I want you to eat like a caveman or eat like a cavewoman. If you can go out and pick it and find it and kill it, and maybe put it over a little bit of fire, then that's exactly how you should be eating. If you can't do that, you can't have it. There you go. You are now a nutritionist.
Right. Well, one of the things I used to do in my practice when people with the dairy thing, and then I do eat occasional dairy, but I always thought to myself who the first person was that looked at a cow and said, I want to drink that milk. Because I would say, would you drink human milk? I said, no, it's disgusting. I said, but would you drink pig milk or dog milk? So there's a lot of, cultural programming that goes in with that. The fact that we look at a cow and say, that milk's delicious, but every other animal is gross, except for maybe goats,
Right, and we're really the only species that drinks another species' milk.
Right.
So no other animal does that. So no, I don't know. Maybe we definitely need to reassess that, I think.
Sure. Let me ask you this. With organic food, you kind of mentioned that. People see it out there, and sometimes money can be tight or whatever. Is organic food worth the extra money, the investment? Nutritionally.
It really, really is because, and I've done extensive research on the spraying of conventional food versus organic food, and I did that because when I started eating organic food, I was living in New York City, barely making any money, and it was really a struggle to buy organic food. But the amount of pesticides and herbicides that are sprayed on the conventional food may be a little bit on an apple, a little bit on some broccoli, a little bit on some celery, but all of that little bit adds up to such an incredible amount. Now, adults can handle it a little bit better because our livers are fully functioning and can detoxify some of these things. So it's much, much worse for children, and they're still developing. Their livers are still developing. They don't need these toxins inside their body, so it's well worth it. Now, for my clients who this is a difficult transition financially, they need to do this one step at a time. I always give them the guideline. If something has a very thick skin and you're not going to eat it, well, then you can keep those conventional until you can get those organic. So avocados, if I can only get them conventional, I'll do that. Bananas, if I can only get them conventional, okay, that's okay. But things like celery and strawberries and apples and pears, things that I'm actually eating the skin, if it's not organic, I will not even go near it.
Right. All right. And kind of going along that, this is something I've heard, sometimes I can't tell if this is an urban legend or not, but the idea of like the growth hormones that are put into a lot of the meats and animal products, how does that affect humans? Does that help them? Does that cause them to kind of retain weight more? How does that change a human's body?
It does, because if you think about when a male takes testosterone, the reason why they have so many side effects is because their own testosterone now stops functioning at its ideal level. It's almost like his own testosterone becomes a little lazy. Like, I'm getting this outside source, and now I'm not going to do anything, and all of his hormone levels are then disrupted. Well, when we get this outside source of growth hormone on top of our own growth hormone, it'll go through these highs and lows. We'll gain weight, our own growth hormone won't do what it needs to do, now we'll have an excess amount. So, and one hormone always affects the other. So, yes, men have more testosterone than estrogen, but they still have estrogen, and it all functions on one loop. So once we start messing with one, we've essentially messed with all of them. Right. And I've seen a lot of people come into my office, and they have thyroid conditions, and different hormonal issues. And once we clean up the diet, it's amazing how just all of the hormonal issues begin to regulate themselves.
Right.
And
that makes sense.
So,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Jim.
Well, so can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think you might be able to talk more in depth about this. Just kind of give us like kind of a brief course almost about how hormones act in the body and how it influences the weight and how insulin works in with that. 'Cause I know that's a big part of your program.
Yeah, and this is actually something I teach to every single person, clients and non-clients, whether they want to hear it or not. No. Basically what happens is when you eat something that is a carbohydrate and or turns into sugar quickly in your body, having high blood sugar is a dangerous state for your body. So it immediately releases insulin, which is the hormone, to start to pick up and clean up that sugar. So it picks up the sugar and it takes it into your cells. First it takes it into your liver, then it takes it into your muscles, but then it has nowhere else to go. So insulin quickly turns that sugar into a fatty acid and starts storing it. And it'll decide. It'll store it in your legs. It'll store it in your abdominals, in your butt, in your arms, wherever it is that your body tends to store. So the longer we have these elevated insulin levels, the more often our body is doing this, picking up sugar, turning it into fatty acids, and storing it into different parts of our body, which is exactly what most people do not want.
Right.
So the two things that really control blood sugar is, number one, to really stay away from the foods that turn into sugar very quickly in the body. Obviously, that's anything containing regular white sugar. That's a lot of different carbohydrates like white bread and pastas that turn into sugar quickly, high fructose corn syrup. A lot of these things turn into sugar quickly. Insulin elevates, and you have this constant state of storing fat. Now, the other thing that balances out your blood sugar is eating protein, because protein has the ability to release glucagon, which is the opposing hormone. So imagine that glucagon can combat insulin, and that's essentially what everyone does want. They want the glucagon, the insulin fighter, in their bloodstream, constantly keeping insulin at bay. So the two very important things there are keep away from those foods that turn into sugar very rapidly, and number two, it's essential to eat a protein with every single meal. And it doesn't have to be a big fat steak at every meal, but it has to be a little bit of protein at each meal.
All right. Good. That's great. That's a great description of all that stuff, complicated processes. This question just came in, and this is interesting. I'm curious to hear this. It says in your book you recommend using Celtic or Celtic sea salt. You say to replace kosher sea salt. What's up with kosher sea salt?
Well, kosher sea salt is still processed, so it still has gone through the processing. Now, I think Celtic sea salt also offers a grainier, more kosher-like, because that's what kosher salt is, right? It's just thicker salt. And what we're looking for is an unprocessed salt. I mean, essentially what we want is the water from the sea just sort of dried up, that salt, not processed in any way whatsoever.
Right,
so
right.
I also know that Redmond's Real Salt, which is another brand that I recommend, has thicker kosher salt. So I know a lot of people like to use kosher salt for cooking. So those two brands, you can find kosher salt.
Great. Let me ask you this. Well, two questions that I'm curious about. They've kind of come up. Recently, they made these commercials for high fructose corn syrup. I'm sure. Have you seen those commercials? There's like two of them.
Well, I don't have a TV, but a lot of people have told me about them, and then someone sent it to me over the internet, and I absolutely could not believe what I was seeing. I absolutely could not believe what I was seeing.
So what do we do? Teach us right now. We get in that conversation with someone who says, what, you don't like corn? Or whatever that they say in the commercial. What do you say to them about why is high fructose corn syrup bad?
Okay, so the human body was never designed to eat corn. And now people who eat corn at a barbecue know this because the corn revisits later on. So again, back to that common sense. Do you think your body's processing it? No. It wants nothing to do with corn. And I actually really steer people away from corn chips. I know there's a lot of health food products with corn in it, but most people do a lot better with corn. So high fructose corn syrup, now they've pulled all the sugar out of the corn, and they chemically have processed it. So it is just the sugariest of sugars, if that makes any sense. Okay? So if anything is going to elevate your blood sugar, it is this. I mean, it's like nothing could be worse than this high fructose corn syrup. And now we're back to that explanation about insulin and the constant fatty acids in the bloodstream and the constant elevated insulin levels. So that may be a little too complicated, and this is a question I get often. So what I say to people is high fructose corn syrup is poison. It really is, and I'm not afraid to say it. And I would have the same conversation with a child about high fructose corn syrup than I would about cigarettes. That's truly how bad it is for the human body.
Wow. Well, I respect that. And that's one thing I really do respect about your work is that you just state it. It's just clear. And I think we live in a society where everyone's so nervous to say anything. And I'm thankful that there's people like you out there that are just going to state it. And again, anyone listening, this book is fantastic. And it's just, a lot of the questions that come in and say, God, it's so confusing. I hear so many different things. And what I like about your book and your approach is that it's just clear, and you state it. You state it in the way it should be said, that it's poison. I like that, because it is. It's like, you see the commercials from like 50 years ago, and you see cigarette commercials with doctors, So it's like, just because people don't think of corn syrup as being poison at this point does not mean it's because it's not, So you come out and say that. We need more people like you with that kind of background saying that, getting that word out. So if anyone's interested, click on that link and you can learn more about Isabel's approach. Going forward, let me ask you this other one too. This is kind of a controversial one. I hear all sorts of stuff. Is the idea of soy? Where do you stand on that?
The soy we have in this country is not the same soy we have that they have in Asia. So what Americans have done is taken the research from Asia and they've just distorted it. So what Asians do with soy is they ferment it, and it goes through a process so then it is digestible in the human body. And they eat very little bits of it. They do not eat tofu dogs and big chunks of tofu and soy milk. They just have little bits of edamame, fermented tofu, and in very, very little bits, okay? So here, now, we take the soybean, we do nothing to it, nothing we're supposed to, and we make it into all of these processed soy foods, and people do not have the digestive ability to use this in their body. So that's another thing that happens so often. People come into my office, they're bloated, they have gas, they have such digestive difficulties, their hormones are completely disrupted. I take a look at what they're eating, and they're a vegetarian, and they're having tofu breakfast links and soy milk and then some soy veggie burgers for dinner.
Sure.
And I just tell them those are now done, absolutely done. And I had one woman come back in 2 weeks. I can't make this up. She was 10 pounds lighter because she finally was going to the bathroom the way a human is supposed to. I mean, in 2 weeks, she was 10 pounds lighter. So I see these things firsthand, and, Jim, that's why I'm not afraid to say what I have to say, because I almost feel like this woman wasn't doing it on purpose. She just didn't know. She was just doing what she thought was healthy. And it would almost be irresponsible of me not to tell her, right? Because now now she's feeling great, no more soy. So, yes, if you get, if you have a little bit of edamame, that's okay. Some wheat-free soy sauce, use that in cooking, that's okay. And I list these in the book. I give you the ones in the book. But any of these processed soy foods, absolutely dangerous, and they are even more dangerous for our children because they do act as estrogens in the body. And back to the hormone thing, the last thing you want to do is mess with your hormones or your children's hormones.
Right. Well, that makes a lot of sense. One of the things, I don't know if you see this or feel this way, but sometimes I think, people they really are trying. They're really trying to do their best with it, but they either get confused or they're misinformed, and they're almost like looking on the wrong level. Like they're so busy counting, fat grams or carbs or kind of these little categories that are so minuscule compared to the categories of how much of your diet is raw. Or how much, and so when they try and do moderation, they're moderating carbs and fats and all these things, but all those foods a lot of times are within processed category, and then they get kind of stuck that way.
And really missing the big picture, and I think, following that example again of just being thrown in the woods and eating what's natural, that's it. That's all the information you need. And also, the deal with calories and how much should I eat, the human body and your body knows how much it's supposed to have. But unfortunately, a lot of people have lost touch with that. When you're full, you're full. And when you're hungry, you're hungry. And I do have to do some baseline calculations with my clients just to give them somewhere to begin because they've lost touch with that. But part of the Diet Fusion program and the work I do with clients is relearning how to listen to your body, stopping when you're supposed to stop. I mean, nobody's going to starve. We have food available at all times. And if you're full, put the fork down and save it for later. And, and you won't starve from now till then.
Sure. Those are good points. Well, that's why that high fructose corn syrup commercial. The thing about it was so in your face that you could see the propaganda all over it. But they estimate that we see 3,000 ads a day on average in America, and half those have got to be food related on some level. And they're constantly trying to manipulate us to overeat. To eat just out of emotional reasons and all the other stuff. So. Yeah, I think relearning. I think that's probably an important point. We're going to get into that a little bit in the second half. Give me a few. We kind of covered some of them, but just make it real clear. What are some of the most important, just kind of general nutrition rules that you suggest? Someone's going to follow a few basic rules. What should they do?
Basic rules would be make sure that everything you're eating is natural. If it's processed and it's in a box, chances are you should not be eating it. And when people come to my home, they always ask me, how do we not have a pantry? We don't have a pantry. Well, nothing we eat is out of a box. Nothing comes out of a can, and nothing comes out of a box. So I don't have a pantry, and it's okay. So keep it natural. Number 2 is make sure that you're eating enough protein every single day. Your energy levels will go through the roof if you include some whole organic eggs, some natural free-range chicken, some grass-fed beef, raw almonds, raw walnuts, which I do put in the protein category, wild fish, just little portions of each at each meal will make you feel so energetic, satiated. A lot of people always say to me, I'm always hungry, and protein most of the time is really the answer. So number 1, keeping it natural. Number 2, making sure to have enough protein. And number 3, just staying away from the foods that essentially could be put in the poison category, which are high fructose corn syrup, trans fats, and anything with white sugar and white flour. I mean, those are just harming the human body so much that, every time I turn around, I meet another diabetic. Every time I turn around, I meet someone with cancer, someone with heart disease, and I really think it's that third one, the staying away from the poison foods, that has a lot to do with it.
Right. Well, what a great frame. I like the word poison applied to that. And talking about diabetes, I mean, diabetes, it's going through the roof. What do you think? That's because of white sugars and corn syrup? What other things factor into that, do you think?
Really just, people not following those first three I just stated and eating way, way too much bread, too much pasta, too much cereal. So, I don't want to talk about the medical community and say how awful they are, but I think, again, just misinformed. And the case with my mother was they were suggesting to her that she make sure she had things like cereal and bread and pasta during the day so that the insulin that she was taking, she wouldn't have blood sugar lows. So I just looked at them and I said, how about she doesn't eat those things and then she doesn't need the insulin?
Right.
Well, they told me I was nuts and that, that was just harmful to her. Well, lo and behold, my mom is 65. She does not use any insulin. And the doctors think this is a miracle. It's absolutely not a miracle at all. It's really not. And I didn't discover it. I just read it in a book.
Sure.
She just stays away from things that elevate blood sugar, and those things are cereal with skim milk in the morning, some processed diabetic muffin that they sell in the health food store that is so far from healthy, it's not even funny.
Right.
Some, cereal that they're claiming is great. The worst is those shakes that they sell for diabetics, and they have about 50 grams of sugar. How do you sell a shake for a diabetic and put 50 grams of sugar? That is 12 teaspoons of white sugar in this can. So that's another thing that every single one of my clients knows. 4 grams of sugar equals 1 teaspoon.
Right.
So the next time you buy something and it says 24 grams of sugar, that's 6 teaspoons of pure sugar in that product.
Right. Well, that's a very effective way to frame it as well. How do you? I don't know. Kind of side note. How do you think? And I'm shocked by this too because I got enlightened to some of this stuff one day, and I was shocked as I began to become aware of the ingredients on the side of some of these boxes that said they were healthy. How do you think they get away with making a diabetic specific product that has so much sugar in it?
Well,
how does that happen?
Probably some of my ideas you don't want me to share on this call, and I think. When you step back and you really look at it, it's such a business. What would happen if every single diabetic cured themselves of diabetes? There would be, no more diabetes medication, no more insulin pumps, no more insulin, no more diabetes association. And you know what? They're businesses, and these businesses need to make money. And when I meet some of these pharmaceutical reps or I meet some of these people who endorse these products, I don't think they're doing it on purpose. I just think that they're misinformed. And, the dietitian at the hospital, I told her that. I said, I know that you are doing your very best here. I really do. But I just think that you're misinformed about what needs to be done, and we need to do it our way. And that was it. So it's a business, and our health is our responsibility. Right. So I always tell my clients, and I really want to stress this to the listeners, is don't believe a word I say. Don't believe a word your doctor says. Make sure that you take your health in your hands and look into it. Read the books that are out there, put together the information, and then follow what makes sense to you. What does your gut tell you is right? And I'm sure that eating an apple with some almonds sounds like it makes more sense than having a shake with 50 grams of sugar in it. So, go with your gut and do what you think is best, and you'll know the right answer.
Great. Well, that was one of the core reasons I wanted to put this whole thing together because what I've found, in my life is that when I've really moved forward and made progress, it's by doing something completely counter to conventional wisdom. I found conventional wisdom to be, so often it was just completely and totally wrong. but it was just what everyone was doing, and so it's like, it's so great to get every week, with these people, and they got the proof, and I want to get into that in a few moments with you specifically. You've lived it, you know what I mean? Like, there's the picture of you right there. It's the same for me. I dropped 50 pounds, and it wasn't even, I didn't really even exercise. It was because I began completely shifting the way that I ate, 180 degrees, and your body. Well, let me ask you this. What happens to the body? When a body goes from and we'll just say, we'll classify it as a processed type of diet, just a typical American processed fast food type of diet, to a more natural, no preservatives, that type of diet. What shifts in the body? It seems to me, this is a very kind of ignorant view, is that it just seems to operate more efficiently. But what happens specifically to that body?
Well, the first thing that happens is the cleaning up of the liver. And without your liver functioning at optimum, you absolutely cannot lose weight. It is absolutely impossible. So your liver has two jobs, and its first job is to process and eliminate toxins from your body, which is why alcoholics die of liver disease, right? Because their liver has just become so overwhelmed with the alcohol, which is a toxin to the body, and it just gives up.
Right.
So that's the first job of the liver. Now, the second job is to process through fat, especially unwanted fat. So when your liver has to choose between either processing toxins or processing through fat, it will always choose the toxins first because it doesn't want you to die.
Right.
So if your body is so busy, or actually I should say if your liver is so busy detoxifying you from toxins, which are in processed foods, it will never get to job number 2, which is processed through fat. So it's almost like your body just automatically starts burning through fat because it doesn't have any more toxins to take care of, and now it's able to process through the fat. That's number 1. Number 2 is you start eating these foods that require digestion in your body, so your metabolism has to work. It has to digest your proteins. It's got some good wholesome fruits and vegetables, and now you've got a cranking metabolism. As opposed to some of these starches, they just go right into your bloodstream. Your metabolism can just pretty much sit pretty and just stare at them go by and not do anything at all. So it's a great shift in the body, and it really actually happens very quickly for most people. They see a change in about a week or 2.
Sure. Well, it's profound. I mean, you're talking about a profound difference in approaching this. What do you think? Like, a lot of times I see, like, people go on a diet and maybe they'll start eating these, like, Weight Watcher meals or these Jenny Craig meals. And it seems like maybe a lot of times they're trying to, like, treat the symptoms, instead of trying to treat the real cause of it. How do those things affect you? I mean, they're low calorie, low fat, I'm assuming. What do those do to the body as opposed to a more natural? What's the difference there?
Well, a lot of people, the reason why they go on these, Weight Watcher plans and, buy the food is because it is a quick fix, and they're just making the situation worse. Because if you've ever read the back of a lean cuisine, it is absolutely scary. I mean, I have had organic chemistry exams that made more sense than some of these lean cuisine meals. So, that is making the whole liver situation absolutely worse, and there is tons of sugar in these meals. And it's not food. I mean, I would not even qualify that stuff as food. So you just continue to make the situation worse. And, it's a quick fix. What I tell people ask me all the time, what's different about the diet solution is, okay, the diet solution, the extra added benefit is you're going to lose all the weight you want to lose. But really what you're going to do is you're going to clean up your health for the rest of your life. If you follow the principles that I teach in there, you will not be hit by diabetes. You will not be hit with heart disease. You will not have high cholesterol. I mean, and I am confident to say that because if you follow the principles, you will just function at such an ideal health, and the weight loss is a side benefit. And you don't have that with some of these quick fix programs. Yeah, you have weight loss. I mean, I could lose weight, by next week by not eating anything at all. I could lose weight by next week by just eating grapefruits. But would I be healthy? No. Chances are I'd probably feel awful.
Right. Well, that's a good point, too. And I think that's something that should be highlighted in a sense. It is your approach. Again, it's so much more. I love your approach because it's really not about it's not about weight. Weight's a secondary thing, and I think it always has to be for anything to truly be successful permanently. But yeah, I mean, you're really talking about feeling vibrant, feeling alive, feeling happy and healthy as the weight comes off. And again, I think a lot of people don't look at weight loss that way. They look at it as, like, I gotta just go on a diet, and I gotta do this, and it's a struggle, and they feel like crap, and it's just bad the whole time. But two other quick issues that I get asked this a lot, and I want to get into the mindset stuff. A lot of times I'll hear someone will say to me, well, what if you have like a slow thyroid? How does that work, and what do you suggest for people to say that?
Well, then I really dive into the details of their diet and what they have been eating. The thyroid is very affected by soy, so if they're having any soy, we completely eliminate that. And then they go through the no dairy, no wheat 2 weeks, and I see if that helps. And, thyroid can come from a lot of different things. And then we start to feed the body only wholesome foods that will nourish it and keep the metabolism going strong. The other thing with a low thyroid is their adrenals are suffering. So if they're not sleeping each night from 10 to 6, I know that sounds absolutely impossible, but I've had people walk in with low thyroid, exhaustion, back pain, and the prescription is sleep from 10 to 6 each night and come back in 2 weeks. And they have to do it, and all of a sudden they feel better. And then the other one is water and salt. So I get them on a lot of water, half of their body weight in ounces of water. So if you weigh 200 pounds, it's 100 ounces. It's a must-do. And you have to have Celtic sea salt every single day. And I have people walking in with high blood pressure, so you can only imagine. I mean, I'm surprised I'm not in jail. But I tell them that the salt is a must. I did it with my mom. She had, her blood pressure had skyrocketed. I said the salt is a must, and amazingly enough, I had people, really get their thyroid back to functioning without any of the medication. That's not always the case. Every case is so specific, but you've got to go through the basics first.
Right.
If you've done all that and you're still having a problem, now it's time to go see a medical professional.
Sure. Well, that's great. That's great advice. And finally, I want to ask, just on the specifics here of coffee. What caffeine, coffee, how does that factor into the body and how it operates?
I'm still really on the fence with coffee because there's a lot of great research. And now, when I say coffee, I mean organic coffee. None of this other stuff is just drinking pesticides. Right. Yeah, you might as well. Yeah, well, the conventional stuff and also, the latte, frappa, something or other at Starbucks. So, I mean, coffee and espresso. Back in the day, they ate coffee beans and they used coffee, and I do think that things that are natural are very effective in the body. At the same time, we take coffee and we abuse it like a drug. So you can have a little espresso in the morning and be happy and then go about your day and not think about the next time you're going to hit the Starbucks and get what's the biggest size they have? I think it's called like a venti or something.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So here you look at all these people walking around and they've got bags under their eyes and they're just not even a healthy color and they're holding the largest cup of Starbucks possible. There is a caffeine abuse going there, but somebody who wakes up in the morning like myself and has a little bit of black espresso, organic beans, maybe some coffee, some green tea during the day which has caffeine, and everything else is healthy. I sleep 8 hours each night. It's not going to affect you.
All right,
you'll be okay.
Great answer. And I think people listening to this, obviously Isabel, she's got fantastic information. My opinion is that it's so common sense, but we don't get this information regularly. You put the TV on, you're not going to hear any of the things that Isabel's saying, even though it makes so much sense. You can watch a CNN special report on diabetes, and you won't hear any of the things that Isabel's saying. And I think that's just, again, it's not to blame or anything. It's just that's the society we live in, and there's people that need to make money, and there's big businesses. And you see it with cigarettes. I mean, it could be any clearer that there are companies out there that will sell you products that will kill you if they can make money. And I think it's important to look at our food sources this way, with this critical eye, okay?
Right.
And what Isabel, what she does, if you're looking for a program that explains it in detail and can help you reframe how you think of food. So it's not about, I have to eat better. I have to, I can't eat any more ice cream. That's in a sense, it's kind of like first grade. It doesn't work. It's limited. You need to have a whole new perspective in a sense on what you think about food. Isabel's book will help you do that. And again, I think your picture is incredible, and I think your mom's picture is incredible. What I love about that is that I think anyone who works one-on-one or anyone's tried making a change in their life, the older you get, sometimes the harder it can be. So the fact your information's so good, your mom used it, you could see the difference in how your mom looks. To me, that's like the best testimony of all, because it's harder to change as you get older. One quick question about exercising, just real broad and basic. I want to get into some motivation stuff. What kind of exercises do you recommend for people? What's kind of your kind of typical advice to someone, exercise-wise, who wants to lose some weight and tone up?
Well, there are so many to choose from, right? So I hate to say this one is better than the other one. You have to have a strength training component, and you have to have a cardio component. And I stress to people that they need to be consistent on one program, because I know that there are 50,000 million wonderful programs out there. And if I'm going to be exercising for the rest of my life, I can probably cover them all. But it's important to pick one and remain consistent with it for a given amount of time, and then go on to the next one. So typically what I recommend to clients is some form of strength training, even if it's just with their own bodies. So for someone who is very overweight and just starting out, you can still strength train with your own body. And that's starting with body weight squats, some push-ups against the wall. You have to make sure that you're building up your muscle mass. And the other thing is you have to make sure that you're challenging your heart. So there's this great debate, is slow cardio good and not good? Is interval training better? They're both absolutely wonderful. Do one day, and 2 days later, do the other one. And, and my other take on exercise is that exercise is a stress to the body. And it's a very, very good stress. But sometimes when people's stress bucket, so imagine you have one bucket and all your stress goes in it, and if people are so overwhelmed with other stressors and their bucket is literally overflowing, what you need to start with is basic movement like walking outside in the fresh air. Sometimes we have to look at our lifestyle and figure out, okay, where am I going to begin, and then where am I going to go from there? So what's the best exercise? The one you'll actually do? I would probably go with that.
Great. That's awesome advice. And speaking of that, speaking of what you will do, I want to kind of shift gears here. And another reason, I was so excited to talk to you, and I love interviewing people that have made changes in their bodies. For you, and I know this sounds silly, I bet, but how do you keep yourself motivated at this point? I mean, you've made a shift in your body. You've made a change from how you were raised and learned a new way of eating and living. How do you keep yourself on track?
Well, motivation comes from the outside, right? So, Jim, you can motivate me, and I can motivate you. But inspiration really comes from the inside. And that's the first thing I ask my clients. If there is one person or one group of people that you could inspire by your change, who would that be? And, of course, the first answer I get is either my husband or wife, my children, my family, and that's how I stay quote-unquote motivated or inspired every single day, is I see the difference that I make in other people, and that, for me, is living my life at the highest level. And it's not just because I'm a nutritionist. It's because I walk in places and people know that I'm healthy. Or yesterday, actually, I went to a completely different seminar than I would ever attend. It was about, my dad owns a sign company, and it was about printers, okay? So here I am. I'm sitting in a class about printers, and I brought my own food. And I never told anyone I was a nutritionist, but the 3 people around me said, you know what? I didn't even think about doing that. I'm going to do that next time. And that was it. So It's really keeping yourself inspired. And the other thing, Jim, is I know what it feels like to live life the other way. I was not this confident. I was not this in your face. There was a lot of opportunities I missed out on. I was not, I didn't speak to people the way I do now, and I did not hold myself, and I remember what that felt like, and I know what this feels like now, and for me, there's really no turning back.
That's cool. One of the main things that I always talk about when I'm working with people is that once you can tap into the emotion of it all, that's really what's going to shift it. And it seems very real for you now that when you think about living that other way, it sounds like you instantly tap into the pain of it, and that obviously now you're tapped into the pleasure of it. Let me ask you this. This is a question I ask people a lot. Which way of living do you feel like is more who you always were? Which one taps into more of your potential and who you are on this planet?
Oh, this one. This is who I was meant to be, and I really do feel like when people are hiding behind all of this weight is because they're almost afraid of themselves. People are afraid of how powerful they really are. They're shy and they're hiding in these bodies because, they don't want the attention that they know they can get. They know that there's so much potential in there, but they're almost afraid of it, and it's very easy to just stay in this comfort zone. But I'll tell everybody that it's a lot more exciting to get out of it.
All right. That's cool. And you lived it. I mean, the picture's right there. I mean, does it sometimes feel like you're almost like two different people? I mean, obviously you're always who you are, but
yeah, it does feel like it was so long ago. But I am so grateful for all of that time because it really became clear to me what I needed to do on this planet. So I am so grateful for all of my experiences in high school and in college. I'm actually so grateful with the struggles that I've had with my mom. Although at the time I was not grateful for them, but it seems so long ago, like I can't even believe that's who I was then. But that helped me to become who I am now. I believe that, everyone else can really do the same.
And now, like for you now, like you're eating, it sounds like your eating's a lot different than it was. Is it hard for you to stay on this diet, or is this just who you are now? Is this just the way you think about food? And so, like when you pass, I don't know, someone gets a pizza, do you worry about overeating? If there's chocolate cake around, do you skip it? How do you deal with all that?
It really is just who I am, and everyone that meets me knows that it's just who I am. And again, it's not just because I'm a nutritionist, because my mom, it's just really just who she is. I mean, she just goes places and she says, well, I just don't eat that stuff. I just don't. No, it's such a part of me. There are things that I do, and I do them naturally. I know each night I think about the next day, and if I know I'm going to be running around like a lunatic, where's the Whole Foods? Can I get to it? Have I blocked some time to actually get there? Or, tonight I cooked my dinner. I had dinner. I have leftovers for tomorrow. When I go to a hotel, I travel a lot. I always ask for a refrigerator. People don't know this, but if you tell the hotel you need it for medical reasons, which you do because your food is medicine, you actually will get a free refrigerator. So I always get a refrigerator. So there are just things that I do, and people will judge you regardless. People are always afraid what other people are going to say. It's not about you. It's about them. It's their own insecurities. And you know what? People will judge you if you're overweight and you don't take care of yourself, and people will judge you if you're at your ideal weight and you take care of yourself. So if they're going to judge me anyway, then I'll go with the, ideal weight and taking care of myself.
Right. Such a great point. I remember that when I made a big shift in the way that I ate, family would look at me and say, oh, my, what's wrong with you? What are you doing? And it wasn't the support I was expecting, which I always thought was funny. And let me kind of point out something. I think the fact that you view a lot of these ingredients as poisons probably helps limit some of the cravings, I'm assuming.
Oh,
you probably don't crave like ice when you think about it, but you don't crave those things like other people crave them because you think of them as poisons and you understand what they do to the body?
Oh, you look at it in a completely different way. Like, sure. I couldn't even physically put it into my mouth because it really does seem like poison to me. Now, I've done a lot of reading, I've done a lot of researching, and all this stuff is so ingrained in my head. Yeah, there are just certain things. I could never sit down. I just couldn't eat a bowl of Lucky Charms with skim milk. Sure. I just don't know what would happen for me to have that. And there are a lot of things like that. But, I have been known to make some, homemade apple pie with some organic natural ingredients and maybe have that. I pick up some organic dark chocolate if I just feel like having a piece. If there's something that I want to have, I'll have it. But, there's just a lot of things that I just naturally won't eat because they're scary to me.
Right. That, and that's this is what the point I want to make to anyone listening to this. This is why you should if you're struggling with foods, you should get this book and read it, because I can tell you what's been more powerful than anything, and I've modeled a lot of people that have changed their eating. The most powerful thing is when you learn what these foods actually do to your body, because it's the truth. You know what I mean? A lot of times people are saying, well, I got to stop eating ice cream, but they don't really know why. They say, well, let's put weight on it or whatever. When you understand what it actually does to your body, and it's not like you go crazy calling it a poison, because everyone who reads about what these foods actually do to you, it falls into that same category. They start calling it a poison. And once you start, once you really think of something as a poison, the cravings fall away. I always say, if you're a non-smoker, I'm assuming you're a non-smoker, Isabel?
Yes,
right.
Something.
You're not a non-smoker because you're really good at fighting off the cigarette cravings.
Right.
You just never have any. Right? You never think about them. So, I mention that a lot because a lot of times people, they assume almost that they're going to have to fight food cravings off for the rest of their lives. And the people that I found that have permanently changed the way that they eat, they don't do it because they fight cravings that they love these foods so much. They change what they think about these foods and the way they feel about them. And you've experienced that shift in how you perceive them. I've certainly experienced it, and a lot of people that have really changed the way that they eat permanently change them. And the easiest way to do that is to find out what these foods actually do to you. It's very, very powerful.
And that's really a great point. I mean, I love the foods that I eat all day, and anyone that comes to my house will tell you they absolutely love coming here because we eat well. I mean, we cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and, we make delicious omelets and, great dinners, and they absolutely love coming because people have also lost that sense of taking the time to cook and prepare.
Right.
We eat well, we eat delicious food, and we're definitely not deprived.
Sure. And it does feel different. I think a lot of people, they almost never even have the experience of getting really, really high-quality nutrition for a day, 2 days. I think a lot of people literally in their lives have never experienced that.
I agree.
It's amazing. So, again, not only just kind of starting by reading these things and understanding what these do to your body, but then, when you kick it off and top it all off, when you actually experience the effects of a real shift in the way you're eating. Not just getting Jenny Craig or not just, eating cantaloupes or whatever for a week or whatever, but really, truly getting all the nutrients you need and allowing your body to operate that it was meant to. So, again, if you're into that, click on that book and check out the pictures. Check out her approach and order the book. You're doing yourself a great favor. So let me ask you this: when you give someone these suggestions, these outlines, what do you suggest? How do people begin to implement them? What's your suggestion there? What works for people to implement these into their lives so that they stick?
Well, this really is a way of life, and I'm very honest with people that it took me 3 years to get to where I am now. Now, it didn't take me 3 years to lose the weight because once I shifted the foods and really figured out that I needed to eat natural foods, the weight did come off pretty quickly. But, really shopping primarily organic and finding those sources for me, cooking my foods did take some time, and they are now just so ingrained in their habits. So for people who feel like it's an overwhelming experience, take 1 or 2 habits and just stick to that for 21 days. So even if you have to start with the most basic one, which is drink nothing else but water for 21 days, you will then have a phenomenal habit after 3 weeks. And then start with something else. Start with, I'm going to bring my lunch to work every day, and it's going to be this. I'm not even going to worry about breakfast and dinner rather. And, after 3 months, you will have made a phenomenal shift in your health. And people are always so anxious to do everything at once. It's okay. I mean, think about how long you have been alive. If it takes you 3 months to shift all of this, I mean, 3 months goes by so fast, I can't even remember what happened in the last 3 months.
Sure.
So take one principle, really make it your habit, and then move on to the next one. Do not become overwhelmed by the information. This I tell to my clients, do not become overwhelmed, become excited that this is all the stuff that you are going to get to do to resolve your health issues. So it's not overwhelm, it's excitement, and you'll get through all of it.
Right. Well, and again, I like the distinction you make. I think a lot of people in the diet mindset, and diet just in and of itself is usually a temporary thing. So I think when you're talking this long-term idea, a little bit at a time, makes a lot more sense. What are some of the kind of limiting beliefs people have sometimes that you see shift and change? So if you could point out, what are some of the common limiting beliefs that you see amongst people when they first come in that when people really succeed in beginning to change, what are some of the beliefs that change for them? You kind of point out to people.
Well, they hold themselves to every single time they tried something and it didn't work, right? So that song is constantly singing in their head, but I've tried to lose weight so many times. So right there we need to reframe that, because now you're not trying to lose weight anymore. You're completely changing the way you nourish yourself. And this is a matter of health. So we're not on a diet. That's not why you came. We're going to work on these things step by step. The other thing is people hold themselves to other people's perception of them. So if you come from an overweight family, which I did, and the doctor told me chances were I was going to have type 2 diabetes and I was going to be overweight, nothing I could do about it. So if I was someone else, I would have just been like, well, that's just me. This is just me. And you hear that from people all the time. Oh, it's my genetics. This is just me. I'm big boned. I'm this. No, none of that is true. You've just convinced yourself that it's true. And I ask people, who is this person that's inside of you that you would like to see and not to be afraid of that person? It sounds so incredible, but I've had a lot of clients get closer and closer to their weight loss goal, and they become uncomfortable with the attention they get. Right. So this is really a matter of working on yourself and, what are the insecurities that are going on inside. It's not just about food at that point anymore. Right.
That's a good point. This question just came in, and I assume I know the answer, but I'll let you answer it. It says, is Isabel's program just for women, or does she also have male clients that seek help with that, and will this program work for men as well?
Yes, I also see a lot of men, and how that usually happens is their wives make such transformations, and then the husbands come in. I mean, it's not usually, although I can't say that anymore, because now the men just come in on their own, and it really does work just as well. I mean, it's not gender specific. It couldn't possibly be gender specific.
Sure.
And food is not gender specific. Right. So it really does work. The only thing that would be different would be whatever exercise program a male or a female chooses, and that's not what my program entails. Mm-hmm. So that's the only thing that changes in my office. But as far as the nutrition program, everyone starts the same. Everyone goes through the same foundational principles. Men will typically eat more. Their serving sizes will be more, and they'll find that in the charts, right, in the Diet Solution program. So if it's a husband and wife, the food can be exactly the same, except the portions would just be different. So, yes, it works for both.
Right. But one of the things, again, anytime you're making a change, what I've found for people is that, making a change in any area of your life that's kind of so habitual as eating is that it is a challenge. There's no question about it. One of the things that makes it easier is when you have a specific plan. Right? So there's that cliche, what is it? Fail to plan to fail, right? Yeah. So it's like one of the cool things about this book is that there is a specific plan there for you to follow. And it's so key, because then you don't have to waste your energy trying to think about what you're going to do. What do you think about that? Do you think that's one of the main things that trips people up a lot when it comes to changing their eating, is that they don't plan well enough and they get into a situation where they just fall back into their old habits?
Right, because it's just, too overwhelming for them to plan it. And what I used to think is I didn't want to give my clients specific written out meal plans, because I wanted them to learn how to do it, right? So I went with that approach for some time, and I found a lot of overwhelmed clients who just threw in the towel.
Right.
And then I did the opposite, which is what I do in the program, and I basically handed them exactly what they needed to eat. And I said, okay, only for the first 6 weeks you are going to follow exactly the foods I give to you, and then I'm going to teach you from there. Well, amazingly, what happened was that they just naturally learned what to eat because they were following this detailed plan. Right. And after 6 weeks, it became such a habit that they just naturally then were able to do the planning and the learning easier. So actually it was quite a learning experience for me in what was best for people. So I tell everyone that quick start bonus that comes along with the program, if you're overwhelmed by the information or you just want to do nothing but start tomorrow, print it out, take it to the grocery store, and start tomorrow. Follow it, start to finish for the next 6 weeks, and essentially you'll have done everything in the Diet Solution program.
Right. Well, that's really cool. Now, you answered this, but I just want to make it crystal clear again, and someone written this in. But I just think this is one of those common beliefs that people have. That they say, is it the foods I eat or is it the amount of calories I eat that's going to help me decrease my body fat percentage and weight?
Well, it's more importantly the food you eat. But, look, chicken and broccoli and wild fish and, lean ground beef, grass-fed is wonderful. But if you're eating 3 times the amount that your body requires, you're going to gain weight. There's no way around it. So it's a combination of both. But as far as your health, you really need to focus on the foods that you're eating.
Great. Good answer. Okay, and I guess, I appreciate we've gone a little bit over time here. One last question I want to ask you, and I ask this to everyone. Could you tell me a story, a success story of someone who you've helped, and kind of just go into, what was their story all about? What got them motivated? I mean, what was the shift? What was the real thing that caused them to really kind of make this transformation, this change? And what was the ultimate result? How did their life change? How did their emotions change and their body change?
Well, of course, everyone can see my mom's story, and for her, it was a matter of living or dying. So that's why she changed. But the other one that comes to mind was a 40-year-old man. He had 3 children. His wife was pregnant with the 4th, and over the course of having all these children, he had gained about 60 pounds and just had lost himself. And he came in, and he had been running, and he had been eating quote-unquote healthy, and nothing was happening. And he just felt like here he has small children. He wants to coach football. He absolutely cannot because he can barely keep up. What was he going to do? Well, of course, I go through the program with him. I tell him to do just about the opposite of what he was doing. Stopped his running and just incorporated his strength training. And his cholesterol was in the 300s, okay? So I told him that he only needed to use coconut oil, organic, unrefined coconut oil, to cook, and he needed to eat a good amount of it. Well, now he's already fighting me because he's got this high cholesterol, and he's already overweight. His doctor's going to kill him. And I said, well, you're either going to believe me or you're not. Right. Well, anyway, over the course of 6 weeks, he lost about, I guess it was about 30 pounds in the first 6 weeks. That's how bad his body was dying to get this weight off. And his cholesterol went from, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but he brought it down into the 180s. And when he went to see his doctor initially and told him about the coconut oil, his doctor said, no way, no how, you absolutely cannot. I'm very surprised he actually did it anyway. And 6 weeks later, he went back to the doctor, and the doctor said to him, I'm sorry. Obviously, you guys knew what you were doing. Please keep doing what you're doing. And, I went to one of the first football games that he coached. He coached his son's football game, and he was on fire. He was out there, and he was just running around the field. At that point, he was 50 pounds less. And he ran circles around the other fathers, and that to me that's why I do what I do. When I get to see that,
That's awesome.
And that was incredible.
That's cool. Anyone listen to this, you know, I think you point something out, and I want to make it crystal clear to people that if, you know, so many people, what they say, well, I've tried everything. I've tried every diet out there. And I agree with them 100%. They've tried every diet, but diets don't work. They don't work because they're all the same. They're different on the surface, but they're ultimately they're all the same. It comes down to this complete different way of approaching your food. And I think that's what Isabel's done in her book, and obviously if you've been listening to this call, you hear that. And what happens when you do something radically new is that you get radical results. And so when you hear the results she's talking about over and over and over again, sometimes cases where doctors look at it and say there's nothing that can be done, this is the way it is, there's radical shifts and radical changes because her approach, and I hate saying the word radical because it's like, it's not radical, it's the most common sense, normal thing in the world. In our society, it's radical. So if you know, if you've been frustrated, if you're confused by what to eat, get Isabel's book. I mean, I don't just come straight out and tell you to get things usually, but this book is that, and it'll clear up a lot. And I promise you, and you guarantee it, right? It'll guarantee on this book.
I do. I mean, if you're not happy with it, and I really haven't had many people not happy with it. You know, even today, I got, you know, an overwhelming number of thank yous, you know, emails that just said those two words and they were thank you. So,
sure.
But I guarantee it, if it's not for you, please return it. I would never want anyone to do anything that was not fit for them.
Right. But I can promise you, and I can tell you, again, this is from direct experience. It wasn't following Isabel's plan exactly, but the same principles. And when I began using these principles, I can tell you, you know, that was when I changed 50 pounds difference. I never dieted. My weight never fluctuated more than the regular 3 or 4 pounds. And it was just very simple, and it was a lifestyle change. So I respect what she's doing. She puts it very clearly, and she doesn't mince words, and that's what we need at this point. You know, when they say we're in the throes of an obesity epidemic. And so we need people to be crystal clear and point out what foods are poisons. You know, the same way that it took 50 years for us to really agree that cigarettes are trouble and poison, we need people like Isabel coming out and saying these foods are poisons, don't eat them. We need to approach food in this new way. When you approach food in this new way, you know, and what you said about, you know, the liver, it's just taxed. It's taxed and taxed. So if you're following these diet foods, the liver is still taxed and it's not able to operate the way it's supposed to. So that was profound. The whole book's full of stuff like that. And so as you clear through the myths, even if you go to the page and just the information page about the book, at least do that. Go there and learn about some of the myths. She goes through a few more that we got a chance to talk about tonight. And clear in your mind what works and what does not. Okay, because a lot of it is completely different than conventional wisdom. Right? Isabel, thank you so much for getting on the call, and thanks for staying a little bit extra here. And I really appreciate it, and I think everyone on the call really appreciated it.
Oh, you're welcome, Jim. I was happy to do it.
Great. Thank you very much. Everyone, thank you for listening to the call as well. And next week we'll be back, and we'll be back on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you, Isabel, and I'll talk to you all next week. Good night.